In this video, you're going to discover unusual techniques for creating jaw-dropping sunset photos. So in this edit, I'm actually going to show you exactly how I created my most liked photo on Instagram, which at the time of this recording has over 5,000 likes. So we'll be working with this original unedited photo, and by the end of this video, we'll have turned it into this beautiful edit. And if we look at the key differences between these two photos, well, number one, the whole photo has been flipped horizontally, and we'll get into that in a moment. Then the colors have been greatly improved, the horizon has been straightened, the composition is improved through cropping, and then there's the beautiful sun, which I've added artificially. Now, in order to do all of this, you'll need two apps. The first app is Snapseed, and the second app is called Lenslight, and it is a paid app. And to tell you the truth, it is a little bit of a gimmick, but that's the app that I use to add that beautiful sun in. So if you also want to sometimes add sun in your photos or another similar light effect, then it might be worth considering the Lenslight app. But now, let's open up Snapseed and let's get started with this edit. So now that I've opened the photo we're going to work with, I'd like to start by doing something really unusual. So I'm going to go to Tools at the bottom and open the Rotate module. And inside the Rotate module, when I opened it, the first thing that happened automatically was that Snapseed thought that it was a good idea to rotate this image by 0.2 degrees, and you can see that at the top. I definitely want to get the horizon straight. It's really important, but I don't think 0.2 was the correct value. In fact, I think something like 0.4 is what I'm really looking for. And at straight an angle of 0.4, I have a perfectly straight horizon. So that's good, but that's not the unusual thing. The unusual thing is flipping the image. So at the bottom of the screen, there's this flip icon, and if you tap your finger there, you can flip any image like so. Now, why would you want to do this? Well, frankly, I don't do it very often, but I have this theory that photos look nicer if the composition flows from left to right, as it does right now, because the first thing you see is the boy, and then you sort of follow the direction in which the boy is moving, which is to the right. So in my opinion, if we flip this original photo to its opposite, we can improve the composition. It's usually not like that, but I had a strong feeling that for this photo, it would work like that, and that's why I flipped the image. Now, if you don't agree with this, you don't have to flip your photos, but I think it's an improvement. So I'm gonna go ahead and flip the photo and save it. Next, I'd like to crop this image. So I'm gonna open the crop module, and I'm looking to crop this into a square. Now, why square? Well, frankly, all the action in the photo happens in the central part of the image. So we have the boy with the reflection, we have the other human subject, and we have the sunset. And all of that fits perfectly in a square, and that's why I'm going to use a square crop here. So one of the things that kind of matters here is how much space I'm going to leave around my subjects. And a good rule of thumb is to leave roughly equal amounts of space around your subjects in square crops like this. So I'm probably looking at a crop that looks more or less like this. So I want to make sure that I leave about as much space on the left-hand side of the image as I do on the right-hand side of the image, and I have that accomplished. And I also want to be careful about how I frame the shot vertically, and I think a framing like this will work really nice. So now I'm just going to do some final adjustments to make sure I get it really perfect. And it is a bit of an artistic decision, but I think something like this works really, really nice. So I'm going to go ahead and apply this crop. So here's how far we've come so far. We started with this, we flipped the image, we straightened the horizon, and we cropped it into a beautiful square like this. And I think we've greatly enhanced the composition in the process. So next up, let's see how we can improve color. And the way to do that, of course, is by opening the Tune Image module. So the first thing I'd like to do in Tune Image is to actually decrease brightness a little bit. And this might seem a bit counterintuitive, but in sunset photos, as the brightness goes down, the colors just jump out more. And it's kind of crazy, but if the image becomes a bit darker, the colors themselves become stronger. But clearly, I don't want to overdo this because This photo is only going to work if there's sufficient contrast between the dark subjects in the foreground and the sky in the background. So after playing around with the slider, I decided that a modest value of -15 will fit this specific image best. Next up, I'd like to touch saturation. And to make the sunset more beautiful, saturation typically goes up. And this image is not an exception, but I clearly don't want to overdo this. So many times people will create a sunset like this, but that's just not what a sunset looks like in real life, so please don't do it. Instead, you want to keep these effects in moderation, and a relatively small value of +30 does the trick for me, because at +30 the colors look better, but all the tones are still perfectly natural, just like you'd see in a real sunset. Next up, I'd like to select ambience, and in sunset photos, I like increasing ambience just a little bit. I don't want to overdo this, so don't ever go too high, or it will once again look bad. But just a small increase in ambience can make the colors pop even more. And in sunsets, I'll often increase ambience just a little bit, something like 15 or 20, like I did in this photo. Now, next up, I'd like to work with shadows. And if I decrease shadows a little bit, you'll see that the overall level of contrast in this photo starts to go up. And this is a silhouette photo, so there should be some natural contrast in the frame. But again, I don't want to overdo this. And as I go too low, so everything sort of blends together, the clouds become too dark, and that's just not good. But if I decrease shadows just a little bit to something like -20, I can get a better looking photo with higher natural contrast, but I'm still not really making it look worse in any way. So I like what I've done with shadows. And finally, the last thing I'd like to touch is warmth, and typically you can improve your sunset photos when the warmth goes up. And this is not an exception, but I don't want to overdo it, because if I go too high, all the blue tones disappear from the image. They first become green, and eventually they just become yellow, and that's not good. So I'd like to increase warmth a little bit, but I want to make sure that the blues stay blue. So a modest value of +15 allows me to accomplish that. So now, let's quickly look at the before and after. So this is before tune image, and as I release my finger, this is what we have after tune image. And the difference is really huge. So I'm really happy with it, and I'm gonna go ahead and apply these changes. Now at this point, there's one more thing I'd like to do in Snapseed, and that is creating a vignette. So the interesting thing about this photo is that all the attention of the viewer goes to the central part of the image. So the eye is naturally drawn to the middle of this photo. And since this is a square photo, I think I can really enhance it if I just add a subtle vignette that further draws the eye towards the middle of the photo. So I'm gonna go to Tools and open Vignette. And now I'm not gonna move around the circle in the center, because for a square photo, it's a good idea to just keep the center point right in the center. But instead, I am going to play around with two things. Number one is the outer brightness value, and number two is the center size. And for this photo, I think I'm looking for a relatively modest center size. So I'm gonna pick +20, because that will just be enough to draw the eye towards the center of the photo, but also it's small enough that the corners will actually get darker. And besides the center size, I'd like to adjust outer brightness. And my rule of thumb for vignetting is that if you can see it, it's already too strong. And because of that, I'm gonna pick a modest value of -25. So if we do a quick before and after, then this is before vignette, this is after, and I like the after version just a little bit better. So I'll go ahead and apply these changes as well. And now I think we're done with this edit in Snapseed. And I really love it. I mean, this is one of my favorite photos of all time, but what's sort of missing is the sun, you know? The sun here is about as bad as it could be. It's a tiny little dot right there. And if we could somehow enhance it, I think this photo would really stand out more. Well, it turns out we can actually do it using an app called Lenslight. And to do that, I'm gonna go ahead and export this photo, and I'll open it in the Lenslight app. So I'm gonna locate Lenslight here. I'll copy it to the Lenslight, and now the image automatically opens up in Lenslight app. Now, to tell you the truth, there are a lot of gimmicky effects in this app, and more often than not, people tend to abuse this app or similar type of apps to create some really weird looking photos. So please don't do that. If you're gonna add artificial elements in your images, just make sure it actually makes sense. With that said, the first thing I want to do in Lenslight is to tap on the effects icon at the bottom left. Here we have all sorts of different categories of effects, and the one I'm looking for is just to add a sun, so I'll go to Sun Collection. Now here, inside the Sun Collection, you'll see that we have all these different options for the different kinds of suns we can add to the photo, and I'm just looking for something that will look relatively natural. So I'll pick Setting Sun, because that's pretty much what I need, and as I tap my finger there, the sun already appeared in the image. So what I'd like to do next is to position it carefully, and to move the sun around, all I have to do is move my finger around the image, and then the sun just follows the finger. And obviously the best position for the sun is right where the sun used to be, so I'm going to put it right here, and I'm going to be careful to put it in the exact right spot, exactly where I want it to be, and I think this is it. So now we've added the sun, and there's so many ways this app can be abused, but this isn't one of them, because if you just saw this photo, the sun fits there perfectly because it was there in the first place, and this is a beautiful sunset photo. So this is a clear improvement in my opinion, but there's still more we can do. And for that, I'm gonna tap my finger on the Edit icon at the bottom of the screen. And in Edit, there are a whole bunch of things we can do to the sun that we just added. So first, there's the scale slider, and the scale is the size of the sun. So you can make it big or you can make it small. I think I have to keep it relatively small, but if I just make it a tiny bit bigger than what we started with, I think this is the size I'm looking for. So the slider is currently at about 55% or so, and that's the size I'm really happy about. If you make it too big, it's just not going to look natural. If you make it too small, it won't be seen. So you have to find the right balance there. Well, next up is the brightness. You can change how bright the sun is, from nothing to ridiculously bright, but I'm just going to leave it at neutral because that worked best. Next, we have the aspect of the sun, which just refers to the aspect ratio, really. And you can sort of play around with the shape of the sun if you'd like to do that. Frankly, I like the original a lot, so I'm not going to mess with this. Then next, there's the source slider. So the source slider allows you to essentially make the sun more apparent or less, and at 100% I think we have the best look, so I'm just going to leave it at 100%. And finally there's the artifact slider, and this allows you to add or remove those lens flare effects. Now this is a small difference, but for example, if you look at the feet of the boy very carefully, you'll see that there's a red line that sort of covers the feet, and actually if I make the sun bigger, it'll be easier to see. But I don't want these lens flare artifacts to be in, so I'm going to reduce those all the way down to something like 10% or so, because if they're in, frankly, I just don't like the way they look. I'd rather keep them out. So I'm going to reduce this pretty much down to 0, and I'll make the sun a little bit smaller so that it's still natural. Okay, we're almost done. There's just one slider left, and that's actually not a slider. That is the color wheel. So if I swipe my finger across the screen to open up the color wheel, I can actually change the color of the sun. So I could pick blue if I wanted to, though I don't know why I'd pick blue. So instead I'm going to pick an orange tone. And I'm looking for an orange tone that really fits well with the overall color scheme of the image. So if it's too yellow, I don't like it. If it's too red, I don't like it either. It has to be the same tone as the orange tones in the sky. And I think this does the trick. So I'll go back to the size slider and adjust it one last time. And I think a size like this is what I'm looking for. Perhaps even a tiny bit smaller. Sun like this, I think, will be good. So I'm really happy with the sun I've been able to add in this app. So I'll go ahead and I'll tap this share icon on top right, and I'll use that to save a copy. Now the image is saved to camera roll, and let's review what we've created so far. Okay, so here is the original unedited photo before we made any of the changes. And here is the final edit, which looks that much better. We've flipped the image, we've cropped it, we've straightened the horizon, we worked in tune image and vignetting to really improve the color, and finally we worked with lens light to add a natural looking sun that really makes this image shine. Frankly, I don't think it would work as well without the artificial sun, but at the same time, these effects tend to be abused a lot, so if you are going to add artificial suns or other stuff like that in your photos, please make sure it still looks natural in the end. But when these effects are used right, they can really take your photos to the next level. I hope you enjoyed the editing techniques I shared with you in this video. And while I didn't hold anything back, there's only so much I could share with you in a short video like this. And there are literally dozens and dozens of other powerful photo editing techniques that I didn't get a chance to share with you. In fact, there's so many different things you can do to improve your photos that it actually took me 3 years to really master photo editing. Now, if you're really good with technology, you can probably figure it all out yourself. That's what I did. It took me 3 years, but in the end it all worked. But the chances are that you want to improve your iPhone photos right now, not in 3 years. And that's why I created iPhone Editing Academy, which is the only online course that will show you how to make your best iPhone photos even 10 times better through careful photo editing techniques. Now, I have to warn you that iPhone Editing Academy always sells out quickly, and the registration will only stay open for a few more days. So if you'd like to greatly improve your iPhone photos through photo editing, you should take a look at this course right now while the registration is still open. So go ahead and click on the big yellow button below this video, and I'll see you on the next page.